Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Creators Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, Bloomburrow Spoiler season rolls on, and we've got some more exciting cards. Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's so many cool cards with so much cool art. I love Bloomburrow so far. Just like the art, the nostalgia. Maybe it's just because it's bringing back, all the Red Wall vibes. But, yeah, let's jump into it. And because it's bringing back some really cool things like, enchantment classes. Bandit's Talent, an enchantment class for 2 mana in black. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards 2 cards unless they discard a non-land card. That can be quite brutal. And, yeah, Tiny Bones decks out there. Get ready. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, they lose 2 life. Ow! And then also at the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card for each opponent who has 1 or fewer cards in hand. So, yeah, I guess like Tiny Bones, Aclazotz, any of the actual, commanders out there that are about punishing players and having no hands, have fun with this. It is absolutely fantastic for you and brutal on anyone else. Next up, moving on, we've got Barkknuckle Boxer. The puns in this are just so good. Absolutely good. Barkknuckle Boxer. 3/2 Raccoon Berserker for 2 mana in green. Whenever you expend 4, it gains indestructible on a turn. Seems like a limited card. Cool. Next up, Byway Barter, a 3/3 with Menace. Raccoon Rogue for 3 mana in red. Whenever you expend 4, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. So, this is interesting because this is like, again, when it comes to like wheels, it's like wheels have different levels of profitability, I would say, right? Like the normal wheel is like, hey, discard, draw 7. This is nowhere near that, obviously. This is more like those wheels that we saw a little while ago, and I think one of the Innistrad sets where it's basically like, discard and you draw 3, kind of. Like, but 2 is quite a bit less than that. That being said, there are ways to benefit from discarding cards. There are ways to punish opponents for discarding cards. This is a free effect on the card, essentially, that like, hey, if you just happen to spend 4 mana or more on spells in a turn, you get to do that, which can just be basically, again, at the end of the day, if you've got no hand, it can just be draw 2 cards, which is very, very good. There are also ways to, of course, double up card draw, get extra value out of drawing cards. Again, get value out of discarding your hand, like Containment Construct, whatever that one bag of holding thing is or whatever. Yeah, those kinds of cards can basically get you that card advantage back. It is an interesting card, though. It is very interesting. Again, I think it's mostly for decks that like care about discarding themselves, or ways that are cards that benefit you from doubling up on card draw and that kind of stuff. But yeah, going down to 2, it's a bit risky. But again, it's not. It's a decision. Again, you may discard your hand. So again, you can just keep it around until you actually really need it. Interesting. Moving on. Corus. Am I missing up that word? Like, what is that word? Coruscaction, mage. Is that just an obvious word that I'm just completely whiffing on? 2/2 Otter Wizard with Offspring 2 for 2 mana in red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Very interesting card. So, this is kind of like Gutter Snipe-esque. Gutter Snipe is specifically for instant sorceries, though. This is all non-creature spells, but it's only 1 damage, but technically it can be 2, really, if you, play the Offspring, or pay the Offspring effect, essentially, to put this as a 1/1 token in addition to the 2/2. It has everything else on the card. Yeah, this one is, again, I keep mentioning with Offspring, like, Brutaclad could consider the Offspring cards because it does, like, creature token copies, versions of actual creatures. This one would be very good to be like, okay, yeah, I've got, 10 copies of this now. I cast a spell. Ouch to you all. Absolutely. So, yeah, with like a Populate or Brutaclad, absolutely. And just like a Spellslinger deck, too, as well. You're going to be able to dish out a lot of damage with this. And then Gyreson Karn is the Gyreson's start, whatever the one is that has like the pinging for like, if you ping 1, you get an extra 2. That thing as well. If you like pinging, if you like spell slinging, if you like, again, very specific decks like Brutaclad, absolutely. Next up, Drift Gloom Coyote, a 3/4 elemental coyote for 5 mana in white. Whenever it enters, exile target creature opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. The creature power 2 or less, put a counter on it. Seems more like a limited card. It is kind of like a Fiend Hunter type effect. Wizards, stop putting in opponent controls. Come on. Come on. Let degenerate Johnny players like me get our little Fiend Hunter loops going, okay? But yeah, I mean, very limited card, it seems like, more so. Next up, Harnesser of Storms, a 1/4 Otter Wizard for 2 mana in red. Whenever you cast a non-creature or Otter spell, you may exile the top card of your library. Till end of turn, you may play that card. This ability triggers only once each turn. It's always funny when it's like, it does this, its name is like Blank of Storm, 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 and it's like, only once each turn. Which is not what Storm's about, obviously, but it does make sense in a way because, yeah, just being able to cast non-creature spells and all of a sudden be able to just impulse draw every single cast, it's kind of crazy. Although we also do have, you know, some cards like, hey, draw a card in every cast or copy a spell. Yeah, I mean, for a Storm deck, for a Spellslinger deck, for a Artifact-centric deck, you could definitely consider this one. I guess Otter Tribal as well, if that's going to be a thing. It only triggers only once each turn, but again, keep in mind, like, it triggers on your opponent's turns as well, so instant spells will help you with that, too. Or flash, speed, other, you know, non-creature spells. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If you got an Impulse Draw type deck that benefits from exile as well, definitely consider that, too. Next up, Hearthborn Battler, a 2/3 Lizard Warlock with haste for 3 mana in red. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Hearthborn Battler deals 2 damage to target opponent. I always find that kind of funny when it's like, you did something wrong. You cast 2 spells. Now, that player over there is going to take the damage to the face. They're like, what? Yes, that player. What I do? You did, yep, you. So yeah, you can actually choose to where to dish out the damage. This counts you as well, so obviously like spell slinging decks could consider this too because you're dishing out the damage. Yeah, it's an interesting card. I mean, it's like a punishing effect and also like a benefit for you when you're casting things too. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting card. I mean, like, I feel like this is probably one of those, so like, you know, group slug type strategy decks cards. So there you go. Next up, moving on, Husk Buster, Burster, Swarm. I can't talk. 6/6 Elemental Insect for 8 mana, but you're never going to pay that, hopefully for you. Menace Death Touch. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card you own in exile and in your graveyard. So, yeah, I mean, if you've got like a... I mean, exiling cards is usually not like what decks are typically built around, like, you know, just exiling your own cards. There are some out there, I guess. But yeah, mostly when it comes to like just filling your graveyard up with creatures, this could be a 1 mana 6/6 with Death Touch. So if that's your thing, cool. There's also like insect decks out there that care about the graveyard as well. Elemental decks out there as well that not necessarily care about the graveyard usually as much, but I guess there are some. Yeah, Horde of Notions out there. So there you go. Next up, Long River Lurker, a 2/3 Frog Scout with Ward 1 that says other frogs you control have Ward 1 for 3 mana in blue. Whenever it enters, target creature control can't be blocked this turn. Whenever that creature deals combat damage this turn, you may exile it if you do return to the battlefield on its own control. Interesting. This guy has a lot going on with it, but it's, again, seems like it's for pretty specific decks out there. You're not going to just include it most of the time just for that last part. It is nice that it has that, but yeah, it seems more like, you know, Frog Tribal / again, if you've got like Changeling Tribal, Lord's Tribal, that kind of a deck, and you can change all your creatures into frogs too, so there you go. Nice little protection right there. But yeah, I don't know if it'll make the cut because there's better ones out there like, hey, Hexproof. There you go. Next up, Mockingbird. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the name on this is amazing, and its effect is really cool. It's a 1/1 Bird Bard with flying for X and a blue. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, mana value less than or equal to the mana spent to cast Mockingbird, except it's a birdish to other types and it has flying. Very cool. So basically, this is like, it's a flying men. So like flying men are just like the typical, you know, cards you say. They're like, okay, 1/1 flyer for 1. We've been getting a ton of those over the past couple of years. There's like 1/1 flyer for 1, but also this, but also that, but also this, but also that, but also this, but also that. You get a lot of extra value now these days versus just being like a 1/1 flyer for 1, which is already decent, you know, for certain decks out there that care about like getting through on your opponents early. But this one's like, hey, you know what? I also have the benefit of being a potential clone, one that is flexible. Like, you do get a benefit, right? You do get a benefit from cloning something, and that clone is also going to have flying, and I guess if you have like bird tribal synergies, it's also a bird, so that comes in mind too. That being said, yeah, you do have to pay potentially a decent amount of mana to clone something. Like, your typical clone effect is 4 mana to copy any creature on the battlefield. Typically, I will say. So, you copy a creature that just costs 4 mana with a regular clone, like clone. This one, if you want to copy something that, say, you only want to pay 4 with on this, 3 and then a single blue, you're only going to be able to copy something that costs 4 or less. That being said, I mean, that's still not bad. That covers a good amount of things out there. Yeah, you might have to spend a bit more when you're copying bigger things, obviously, but you're also granting it the flying as well, so do keep that in mind. And again, it does have that flexibility that, like, if you do just care sometimes about it just being a 1/1 flyer for 1, you can just do that. So yeah, it's a very interesting card. Like, for ones that want to clone things, definitely a card to consider. For ones that, want a 1/1 flyer for 1, absolutely a card to consider. And for things in between, sure as well. Next up, Moonstone Harbinger, a 1/3 bat warrior flying in death touch for 3 mana in black. Whenever you gain or lose life during your turn, bats you control go +1/+0 and gain death touch off turn. Its ability triggers only once each turn. Very specific for bat tribal, I guess, with like life gain or life loss as well. Okay, next up, Persistent Mar Stalker, a 3/1 rat berserker for 2 mana in black. It's +1/+1/+1/+0 for each other rat you control threshold. Whenever you attack with one or more rats, if 7 or more cards are in your graveyard, you may pay 2 in a black. If you do, turn it from the graveyard, battlefield tapped and attacking. Interesting. So this one is, well, kind of like resummoning skeleton type effect, but like with a condition, and it's actually a very specific condition, obviously. You gotta be attacking with 1 more rats, and you have to all hit the threshold, so that's quite a bit. +1/+0 for each other rat you control, though, so obviously, like, if you're in a rat tribal deck, or if you've got a relentless rat stack, which I guess is technically rat tribal, but it's just like, chuck all the relentless rats in one deck. Yeah, I mean, this could be quite good as well. One that you can basically keep getting back, and it can hit really, really, really hard. Outside of rat tribal, probably not really a thing. Next up, Starfall Invocation, a sorcery for 5 mana in white, gift a card. So again, when you cast a spell, you can be like, you get a card. And they're like, thank you? What do you do? Oh my gosh, no. Destroy all creatures. If the gift was promised, turn a creature card, put into your graveyard this way from the battlefield under your control. It is your graveyard, so it has to be a creature that you, own. It's kind of unfortunate compared to, when I first saw it, it's still not bad. That's pretty good, actually. When it comes to, like, necromantic selection, though, that's what I first thought it really was, and that's, like, destroy all creatures, and you just get one thing back. It doesn't matter whose creature it was, you get to reanimate it, essentially. This basically, destroy all creatures, reanimate one of your own. That can still be very, very, very good. Basically, a one-sided board wipe if, you just care about one of your creatures, or it's a board wipe that also benefits you maybe with an ETB. If you're like, okay, I've got this creature with this great ETB, I get it again. Cool. There is obviously the downside of giving an opponent a card, though obviously in Commander with a format that is multiplayer, you can convince that player that, hey, you know what? I know I'm wiping the board, but that player over there, they got a really good board state. We got to slow them down, right? Okay, here's a card. And since I'm giving you that card, could you do something for me? Or, obviously pit the other 2 opponents or 3 opponents, whatever, against each other to barter with you for the card to see, what they can give you. Like, I won't attack you for a few turns, which obviously, if you're destroying the board, yeah, you'd be like, okay, after you get a creature out, then a few turns. Okay. But yeah, it's an interesting board wipe. We're starting to see some more interesting board wipes these days. We're like 4 mana is the standard, like Wrath of God. 5 mana is like, okay, Wrath of God, basically, but also, hey, additional benefit, maybe? So yeah, it's a pretty cool card. Next up, Season of the Burrow, a sorcerer for 5 mana in white. I really like the design of these. Choose up to 5 paw print? I don't know what we call that, worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. 1 paw print, create a 1/1 rabbit creature token. 2 paw prints, exile target non-land permanent's controller draws a card. 3 paw prints, return target target permanent card with mana value 3 or less to your graveyard to the battlefield, indestructible counter on it. My gut said non-land. It is not non-land, so you could technically ramp with this. So, this is I just love the flexible design of these. It's like basically like, the conflicts is, choose one or choose the same mode, whatever you want to do 3 times. This one's basically, though, you could just make 5 rabbits if you want, which again, like for like a go wide strategy, you could definitely just consider it for that. There are cards like that, see play in those decks where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I just need to like go wide very quickly. So I'll make 5 rabbits. Great. Good for me. That being said, this is also great removal too. Like this could be remove 2 things, non-land, sure, but most of the time you want to get rid of non-lands anyways. And it's exile, so get rid of them permanently. The controller draws cards, but again, you're like, oh, your Blightsteel Colossus. Yeah, let's get rid of that. Yeah, or Smothering Tithe. Yeah, it's worth giving that player 1 card for that. So it could be remove up to 2 things potentially, or it could be, again, like reanimate 1 thing out of your graveyard, mana value 3 or less, so keep that in mind. That being said, there's a lot of great like 3 or less things out there, and you get an indestructible counter on it. So if it's like an enchantment or something like that, it might be really hard to deal with then at that point. I mean, anything with indestructible counter on it's gonna be hard to deal with, but again, like enchantments especially, or artifacts especially. So there's only so many, like players. I mean, there are, exile effects for those too, but it reduces the pool of cards to get rid of it. That being said, again, I love these flexible designs. Yeah, I mean, a go-wide strategy, you can consider it. You could just consider it for good removal. And if you do have, obviously, like a good amount of cards that are mana value 3 or less, bringing things back could also be nice too. Moving on. When I was playing Magic last night with my buddies, it was pointed out to me that I missed a couple of the seasons somehow in spoiler season. I do not know how. Thank you, Eddie and Alec, for pointing these out. But yeah, Season of Loss. Goodness gracious. Sorcerer, 5 mana in black. Again, the exact same thing. 1 paw print, 2 paw print, 3 paw prints. You get 5 paw prints worth of modes. The first one, each player sacrifices a creature. Woof! Oh my goodness. Second one, draw a card for each creature control that died this turn. Oh my goodness. And the third one is each one loses X life for X number of creature cards in your graveyard. I mean, this is a very, very good one. I mean, the white one that we just talked about is good, yes, but like I think this just like eclipses that pretty far in the application for this. I mean, Barter in Blood is a good card, right? Barter in Blood is 4 mana, everyone sacrifices 2 creatures. This is like, hey, I mean, at the very least, you could be like, all right, 5 mana, everyone sacrifices 5 creatures. Yay! Or again, you can choose the amount, essentially, of creatures to be sacrificed based on how many you have that you want to sacrifice. So like an aristocrat style strategy, a controlling type strategy. Great. That being said, you can also like make sure you sacrifice 3 creatures and then draw 3 cards if you really want to do that. But you also could just like an aristocrat style strategy. You're already going to be sacrificing so many things on a turn, and again for free, like Viserys here, those kinds of things, free sacrifice outlets. So you could just cast this and with 2 paw prints, draw 10 cards. But then also, I mean, you could just double that up and be like, I'll draw 20 cards because I'll use 2 paw prints twice. And then, by the way, everyone sacrifices a creature too. Yay. But yeah, and it's also a finisher for you as well. So, I mean, which again, like in a deck that can just fill its graveyard so quickly and drain your opponents out. Luckily, you can only activate that part once, but still, yeah, that's crazy. So this is mass removal, potentially. This is mass card draw, and this is also a potential win condition for you. So yeah, this is a hefty card pulling a lot of weight. Can see it play in a lot of decks out there that really care about, creatures, graveyards, those kinds of things. Next up, Season of the Bold. Sorcery for 5 mana in red. Choose up to 5 modes. You know that part, okay? 1, 2, and 3 paw prints. Create a tapped treasure token. Thank goodness Wizards is finally putting tapped on things. I'd still like you to slow down on the treasure front, but that doesn't seem to be happening. But at least they're tapped. Okay. Second one, exile the tapped cards your library until the end of your next turn. You may play them. So basically, impulse draw 2. The third one, until your next turn, whenever you cast a spell, Season of the Bold, deal 2 damage up to 1 target creature. This is weird, and I actually discussed this with my play group last night. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, but is this the first time we've seen, like, a spell deal the damage when it's not present? I mean, again, till the end of your next turn, whenever you're casting a spell, this spell, Season of the Bold, deals that damage. It's going to be doing that from your graveyard, basically, or, like, if it gets exiled from your graveyard, exile? Have we seen that before? That's just very strange. Like, that's incredibly weird. I can't think of any other card that's done, like, not that doesn't, like, not that I can't wrap my head around that makes sense, or that could be a possible thing, but it's, like, kind of like a temporary emblem in a way. It's like, hey, this is just here. You cast spells, you ping things. Cool, yeah. But it's like, okay, yeah. Okay, I cast a spell. My Season of the Bold from the graveyard hits your creature for 2. And they're like, what? Yeah, it's a strange thing. Regardless, just evaluating the card, we've got temporary ramp with those treasures and also any other kind of interactions that you have with treasures as well. Impulse draw, again, up to 4 basically. So like 5 mana, impulse draw 4. Nice. And then potential, removal for creatures. It's just to target creatures, so keep that in mind. It is not any target, which would improve it, obviously. That being said, like, a storm type deck could definitely utilize this. Like, again, just cast this, make those treasure tokens maybe even just for 5 mana. Next turn, like, okay, I storm off, dealing 2 damage to creatures. Again, did I say win condition? It's not really win condition. It's like mass removal in that way because, again, it's not any target. It's an interesting card, but again, a weird card. Let me know, again, if you've actually seen a card before that's, like, dealing the damage itself, but not while it's, like, on the stack. It's weird. Like, again, it's, like, in the graveyard. Strange. Okay. And non-permanent. I'm not talking about permanent ones, but I mean, it wouldn't matter because it's not. It's weird. But now this episode is coming to a close. Comment below and let me know your thoughts on all these cards. And comment below as to how I could have, again, missed the seasons that I missed for some reason, which are huge. And also Season of the Bold. Let me know how that works. I mean, not how it works. I understand how it works. But, like, have we seen that before? Let me know in the comments below. Stay tuned to the channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. Check out my Kickstarter in the comments below, as well as the description below. And, of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.